So I think the internet went down and it's not letting me back into the old one. So we're going to be live here, and we're going to have to try and get people from there back to here. I'm going to just wait for people to figure out how to get back over here, okay, guys? It's going to take a few minutes. We are live again, guys. I'm just giving it a second to let people come back here. Sorry about that. I think the internet crapped out for a second. We should have good internet here, but it seems to always be somewhat of an issue. Just give it another few seconds here. So we lost about 2/3 or more of the audience, which is understandable. I guess we should just keep going, and they'll kind of hopefully figure out how to get over here. If any of you guys can like help them. Not exactly sure what I should do with that. Sorry for those who had questions written and that I didn't get to. Hopefully, you know, if you have questions now, add them to the new chat, and hopefully I will, people who don't find their way over can then rewatch this if there's something that they wanted answered. All right. So I don't know exactly where it cut off. I might have been talking for a bit while it was frozen. But my last point to end that last video was, I get these comments occasionally that show me that people aren't really studying the whole market. I get like anti-trophy comments, anti-vintage comments. Like when vintage goes up, people give me anti-modern comments. When modern goes up, people give me anti-vintage comments. The reality is that there are lots and lots of cards, including trophies, as I was saying right before it cut me off, that have gone up 4 or 5 times in value during this period also. If not, you know, I have other ones that have gone up a lot more that were really undiscovered gems that have exploded in value. So be careful. What I would say is that I love when people argue with me. I love when people debate with me and that sort of stuff. But like, try to do the research on the specific types of markets. And when people come at me really angry and heated and haven't done the research on something, I assume that they're either shilling for something, and so sometimes I'm kind of rude, or I don't take them very seriously because I think that they're just shilling their own product rather than trying to have an actual debate on what was the best thing to buy, what is going to do best over time, that sort of thing. So that's where I'm coming from with that sort of stuff. Hope that makes sense. All right, so Joe Cartwright says that he recently picked up a Vegeta Revitalized. Congratulations, yeah. That's a very difficult card to find, particularly in Limited. They come in Limited and Unlimited. And a UR, which is a 2003, the GKI, not UR, excuse me. It says UR on the top, or it just says, it doesn't always say UR on the top. It also can just say 2003 on the bottom. This is what I'm learning. I'm learning all the different errors so that I can actually help you guys collect that if you want. But the GKI was a 2003 basically reprint of a lot of the ultra rares, not all of them though. And so there are 3 different versions. So when you see a limited symbol in the bottom right hand, for example, it doesn't mean that it's actually limited. It might say UR at the top, which means it's a GKI, which is not as valuable as the limited, or it may not say the UR at the top, but it might say 2003 at the bottom and have like bolded text, and that means it's also a GKI and is not actually a limited, which makes it not as nearly as valuable. So there's all sorts of things that you need to learn to not make mistakes in that market. And I will try and help you guys with that if you're interested once we get to it. Okay. So people seem to be coming over a little bit, back up to about 55 viewers. I think we'll start answering some questions at that. All right. Cool Trainer Kamizi says, best black and white box to invest in. Or first you asked a different question. You said, hey, I'm going to invest into Emerging Powers box. Good choice. Let me look up Emerging Powers. This era, I do not know all of the boxes by heart in terms of like what's in each one. It's the era I know least about, actually. And in part because it doesn't have a ton of cards I'm very interested in. I do like some of the secret rares from these sets, which I do own. That's my only sort of relationship to them. So Emerging Powers. I'm going to take a look just to remind myself of what's in this set. Okay, so this one is that is kind of what so I do own the 2, like the 97, 98, like the Thunderous and the Tornadus Holo. I do own 2 of those in PSA 10 because they were pretty difficult to grade. They were the only hits from this box, and the box was going for so much money. So this is giving the type of stuff that I do. So I was buying the best hit cards that were difficult to grade, these full arts, at very low prices because the boxes were going for so much. Now, let's see how much these Thunderous cards are going for now. So I was buying them for about $20 for the PSA 10s. So more have been graded. Now they're selling for about $100, $90 to $100. So 5 times growth. Not fantastic in this environment, but not bad. It appears that more are being graded. So one of them has a 30 to 50 ratio. One of them had a closer to 49 to 49 ratio. So that's the type of stuff that I'm looking at in the pop reports. 9 to 10s to see, 10s to 9s, I mean, to see, is this a good investable card? How's this going to hold up? How many are there going to be? How many people? So the big question of a card like this is how many people are going to want that card? I think they're cool looking cards. I like them personally. I don't love them. But they are the best cards from this set. So would I buy this set? You know, probably not unless these cards started getting more valuable, unless you want the set for like a particular reason because you really like it, or you know, this is where we get into that sort of like, I wouldn't be buying sets that don't have cards that you want or that other people want and that don't have demand for them yet. I think people are making a big mistake right now in doing that. I think people are overinflating and overhyping sealed product and are undervaluing the importance of what's in the product and what that's going to do to it in the long run. There have been times in the hobby where we were undervaluing sealed product and overvaluing PSA cards. So, but that's my personal opinion. I don't know how much the Emerging Powers box is going for. You know, if the Emerging Powers box is only going for, you know, that this Emerging Powers box I would rather own this Emerging Powers box than I would own the Evolutions box, and maybe the Evolutions box is more expensive. I don't know how much Emerging Powers is right now. I imagine it's probably a little bit more though than 1,000. I've seen these black and white sets go quite a bit. I hear people talking about them as really good investments. I don't see it that much. At the same time, like, there aren't that much of this. But if no one wants the cards inside, it's that sort of stuff. Again, what else could you buy for that money is always the question. Like, when good things that you could buy for that money run out and the hobby gets so expensive that for that type of money, then I would buy something like this if you really want to invest in something. But again, I would take that money and I'd buy these like low PSA 10 first edition holos. I'd buy out, like, you could buy out these types of cards when we talk about that type of money. Some of the lower, priced ones. So, and E series, and you could buy some of these. I think that this era, the black and white era, is much weaker than the diamond and pearl era, for sure. And much weaker than those like plasma sets. I love these shiny, like, full art, the shiny secret rare cards from those sets are gorgeous. Big fans of those. They're cards that excite you, that you really want to pull. In this box, not so much. And again, I could buy the biggest chase cards a year ago in PSA 10, and they're very difficult to pull and not that easy to grade for $20. Now they're only going for $100. So, we have modern cards like that aren't even the biggest hit in sets going for $100 right now. So it's crazy, right? Now, do I think these Thunderous cards should be worth a lot more than some of these modern cards that are going for many hundreds of dollars, when this card's very hard to pull, harder to grade, a lot older, there's going to be a lot few of this, is also a cool-looking card? I absolutely think these are undervalued. These also might be the first Thunderous. I'm not really sure offhand. I forget if someone knows. But, remember first appearance of certain Pokemon. These are not Pokemon people talk about a lot, but you never know. Could become more popular down the line. That's the type of stuff I'd be thinking about. All right. Michael Bowman says, have you tried to hardwire the PC laptop? It should stop the random cutouts. Yeah, I haven't. I can look into that more. I was expecting this to not be an issue now, because we just had like Comcast out to the house, and they just supposedly made the internet a lot better, and they tested everything and gave us like a few adapters to strengthen the signal. So, my apologies. I will look into that. Some other options. I'm not sure I'm going to do it, to be honest. You guys might just have to live with this for a while, although I know if I'm looking to grow the channel and really get people... I think we're still good. Let's see. Next question. Favorite duck Pokemon from Gold Duck's Mind Play? The Gold Duck, man. Favorite duck Pokemon, huh? I mean, it's Golduck, honestly. It's not a very creative answer, but it's Golduck. I actually thought Golduck was cool. I used to like to play Golduck when I played. I do like all water teams. I did all, like, when I was playing the Game Boy games as a kid, I did full teams of like. I like doing, full water team, full fire team. Full dragon team was one of my favorites to do. I played with like every Pokemon, but I actually really liked playing with Golduck. I thought it was cool looking. Andrew says, Jake, do you think TCA's $800 sell on the Indigo Plateau Trophy PSA 10 was too high, considering the nearly 100% 10 population at PSA? I'd have to do more research on that card to tell you exactly what I thought. So I can't really answer it. Sorry. You know, I don't like know every card in the hobby's price history and exactly what they've been selling for to just like be able to do that, unfortunately. Watsy Fetish question. Do you see a change on PSA management with the new competition on graded market? For example, Ghost Pikachu grading again or special things like Pro Stars? Yeah. Yeah, so we touched on that a bit earlier with my comments on CGC doing that sort of thing. I think that PSA they need to hire someone to do that with that sort of expertise. That's the public answer I think they've always given, or what I've always heard from other people who have talked to them, I guess, that they just don't they don't have the expertise or the way, or like to test our errors, like legit errors. Are they like faked errors? You know, I don't know. These types of things is what I've heard. Mataku says, hello, I have a Charizard from 1995. Is that rare? Well, the only like Charizard that has like a 1995 date on it would be like those Top Zone cards that are actually not from 1995, even if they have the 1995. So I'm not sure if that's the card you have. You know, Japanese base set would have been 1996. So not sure which card you're talking about. If you have that Top Zone card, particularly if it's blue back versus the green back one, if it's blue back and it's no numbered, that's a very rare card. If it's blue back without the number, also pretty difficult to find. Not extremely rare. Definitely very rare to find. Very, very rare to find in very high grade because those cards are very delicate. And the greenback, we don't know if there are more greenbacks than bluebacks. There seem to be a little bit more. They definitely don't fetch as high of a price. People have theorized the blueback was the first printing, which is why the blueback no number was actually the first printing, which is why the no number is only in blueback, because they fixed that. That's the theory that people have. Joe Cartwright says GKI doesn't have the cool foil too. Yeah, GKI has like the Frieza Saga foil. I like that foil, but it's not the crazy cool ones that are in some of the later sets. So definitely, I personally want to collect one of everything, because that's just who I like collecting every single thing. I like the history. I like to see the progression. I like to understand why they had that foiling, why they didn't have the foiling. I like to know everything about the cards I collect. And I like to have examples of all of them, and I like to have them all in binders. So, we talk a lot about finance on this channel, but trust me, I'm a hardcore collector of these items. But yeah. So I am gonna start asking this once in a while. But if you guys do like what we do here, if you can like the video, you know, help it get out there, help more people find it, see it. I'd like to grow the channel, get new people involved so that we can grow it bigger. My goals are is that I want, if I can make enough money on this channel eventually, I would like to give a lot of it, a huge portion of it, to charity. I also want to use this channel to really help magnify smaller channels that I think deserve a lot more growth. I talked about that a lot at the beginning of the stream. If you weren't here, mentioned some channels that I really think deserve more. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of people like that. That's how I would like to use this platform. So I am going to start asking people to subscribe. I am going to start asking people to like the videos. I know I haven't done it in the past. I don't like it. It's not really my personality, but I do think that there's a reason to do it, okay? And a good reason to do it. That isn't just about me and this channel's growth. You know, like I just said that, and we went from 10 likes to 35 likes so far. You know, I mean, it's incredible how saying it has people do it, whereas if you don't, they don't. Craziness, right? Thank you all for liking. Really appreciate it. I understand that probably some people watch our channel who don't like me and don't like what we're doing here and hate watch us, but I imagine most people are here because they really do support, even if they disagree with my arguments what I'm talking about, which I encourage where you disagree to disagree. They understand where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to do, and that I care very much about trying to help people and help the community with whatever experience or knowledge I have. And so I I do imagine that if I ask for people to like and ask for people to subscribe, that a high percentage will. We do have a pretty high percentage of the channel that is subscribed, who actually watches the videos. Part of what I really enjoy, and we don't do good thumbnails here. We don't do good captions that bring people in. I am gonna probably start doing some of those again to try and to get a bit of a bigger audience. But what I've really appreciated that is, even though I haven't done that, although we've stopped sort of growing in terms of like getting a lot more views per channel, people have kept coming back because they're here not for those things. They're here for the content and the conversation. And that's the community I want to build. So I don't want to lose that, and I don't want to attract people who aren't interested in that and are just, kind of, aren't that engaged. But I think there are a lot more people out there who would really love and enjoy this type of content, and who I also could get to subscribe to some of these other wonderful people. I really want to help Pat's channel grow. I think it's going to be amazing. As I said in the beginning of the channel, I really want to help, Joe from Omnipoke doesn't need my help. He's big, but he's, fantastic. But Swami, Pokegal, a lot of these just like wonderful, kind, amazing people, who have been in Pokemon a long time, have a ton of knowledge and experience, and don't have big followings, because people aren't finding their channels, they're not listening, or they don't have the awareness and expertise to be able to differentiate between people who know what they're talking about and people who don't. I think the reality of YouTube is that people see a high subscriber count or high views, and they assume that person knows what they're talking about. When a lot of the times that isn't the case. And a lot of the smallest channels, and frankly a lot of people who aren't on YouTube, who I talk to in Discords, are actually some of the most knowledgeable people. And they just aren't interested in self-promoting and building that brand and doing that sort of thing. That doesn't mean a lot of the big channels know a lot. So it doesn't mean that because they're big, they don't know a lot. But it's a reality that, unfortunately, particularly newer people, they see the subscriber count, they see the fancy camera, the fancy thumbnail, and they assume quality, instead of listening to it. So appreciate the likes, and if you haven't subscribed, if you can subscribe, I am going to be asking that going forward here and there. Thank you very much. Let's see. Let's get to some more questions. So some people giving some advice on saying that, like, Legendary Treasures was better than Emerging Powers, that some of these other sets in that period were better. Let's see what we've got here. Really good conversations going on in the chat. Love to see that. Love to see you guys when you guys are interacting and giving each other, particularly when you can fill in the gaps, like when I don't know a lot about the black and white sets. Anyone who has that information, please, feel free to answer, engage. This is a community channel where we're trying to share information, and Uni says, should I sell or hold vintage cards? Well, the first answer is, are you a collector or are you an investor? Is the first way to start. So it's not a simple question. I think that if you love what you're doing and you enjoy collecting, and you enjoy vintage, there's also good reason to think that vintage, as long as Pokemon stays viable and relevant and people still enjoy it, that vintage cards, even if we see price retraces, if people leave the hobby, or a certain amount of people leave hobby, I think over time those are the cards most likely to retain value. And some may even go up hugely in value, possibly, and you might see really large returns that outpace anything you could have really bought, in the stock market, at least blue chip, bigger type companies. It's possible. So, but it's going to depend on the rarity. Are you buying something that is mint, that, you know, that is mint or gem mint? Or are you buying something that has very, very good rarity? There aren't that many of that card in the world. Difficult set card to pull, or even better, a card that was a promo card, or a card that was distributed, or a trophy card that was handed out for free, that is very, very rare. Cool Trainer Kamizi says, can you show some cards, Jake? Yeah, we can take a look at some cards. You guys want to see it? So, you guys want to see some Dragon Ball Z cards, or some... I should probably wait for a video to show all of those. I have lots and lots of cards by me. So I have these big... I keep a lot of my valuable cards in these big black cases. You know, hundreds of cards in here. So these are all of the cards in here are base set cards and some trophy cards. These are some of my favorite cards in the hobby to collect, and in my opinion, some of the most, you know, just have always been the most overlooked. But these, you know, stamped cards, I have a lot of them at this point. Basically, I just buy them all day. These are cards that, you know, unlike the stamped cards that are modern right now, a lot of these cards have only 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the pop after 20 years. Some have none in the pop. Some have 1, 2 in the pop at all. Not even just in PSA 9 or PSA 10, depending on the card, depending on the rarity of the stamp. So, you know, and they're so cool because these cards were given out at World Championship of Pokemon for people who achieved something and won something. I think the staff cards are really cool too. The staff cards were given out to people who helped and participated at the events, very similar to the, you know, staff Lugia, staff Charizard, the modern staffs that we see today. Why a card with 1,200 copies, like that Japanese VMAX Rainbow Trophy card, is sold? I saw like one sell for like $20-some thousand, and these cards I was buying all day like $100, $200, $300. I would much rather own these cards than that card. $20-some thousand compared to $100, $200. I mean, I get that it's Charizard, but at the end of the day, you got to collect what you enjoy and what you love, and also like what is happening, right? So there are all sorts of examples of like that in the hobby. I don't go into detail because I don't want to affect the market too much. I try to teach you guys the skills, right, to do that yourself and see those things yourself. I get that it's hard to find that information sometimes. Bulbapedia is going to be your best friend. I want to make that rarity video. I may give the info to another channel, and that channel might make it because they'll do a better job at some point than I would, because I'd like that video to be big and get out to the most people possible potentially. So that might be something we just we don't do for a while. So we shall see, you know, what we do there. But yeah. There's just lots of things like that if you really analyze like the coolness of the art, the uniqueness, right? I mean, if we look at that like Rainbow Japanese VMAX trophy, the exact same art is in Champion's Path, and people hate that now. People hate Champion's Path. You get Champion's Path, so now people overly hate Champion's Path. They're having a rational negativity towards Champion's Path, in my opinion. I mean, it's not a fun set to open, but it's amazing how like there's such groupthink around things that everyone loves something and is obsessed with it, and then people come out and say it's bad, and everyone starts saying it's bad, and then everyone hates it. You know, people are just following each other for views. They're just making things that they think other people want to hear. You know, those are videos that are getting the most likes, that are getting the most watches. It sucks. It sucks because people are going to be negatively affected over time with that sort of stuff. But yeah. So, yeah, I have lots of stuff here. You know, I have like these. I also have stuff that isn't Pokemon. This is like one of my Yu-Gi-Oh binders. I love these. I just have tons of these like holo. You know, we can't really see them well here. These are like the 1998 Bandai. Very, very difficult cards. Very expensive cards to find in high grade in particular. I see PSA 6s, PSA 7s of these going for hundreds of dollars now. You've got like incredibly cool art, the Dark Magician. You know, I love these cards. 1998 Bandai. Again, there's tons of money, there's tons of opportunity, there's tons of value in all sorts of things. There's more in the world than special delivery Pikachu. It's why I get frustrated, and it's why I think that, like, sometimes I'm like, do people even like collecting? Because they're not even doing the work to discover these other sorts of things. It feels like sometimes it just becomes all about the hyped card, and people are saying that they like it the best, but they don't even know about 1,000 other options, So both in and outside of Pokemon. So let's see what else we got here. Lucky K says, I just acquired a Japanese base set booster box. Awesome. With all cards that are pack fresh. Where do you see prices going on this set? I'm not really sure. So Japanese base booster boxes are so gorgeous. I love the art on those. I think it's part of what I like, why I like CP6, is because it has that same art. Gotta be some of the coolest art, if not the coolest art in the whole hobby, pack art in the whole hobby. And it's the original. You just can't beat it. It's so cool. I don't know where it's gonna go. I think it's gonna do well. It's going to depend on the broader hobby. Those types of items are great items to hold if you believe that Pokemon's going to do well over time. That's what I would say. As a collector, love that. Love those items. Beautiful items. That's one of the only sealed items that I'm that interested in. I'm not a big sealed collector. I like having sort of a pack of each art because I do love the arts and I love that connection. But to me, like, having a whole sealed booster box, it isn't worth that amount of money to me. I'd rather buy the cards I really want and do those binder sets and those sorts of things than have those at the prices. Now, I still really like the booster boxes and sealed items. It's just not worth it to me at the prices. I hope that makes sense to people. Whereas in Dragon Ball Z, I have bought some of the sealed product because to me, the prices on the sealed product was worth it. On some of the boxes I bought. On some of them, they weren't. So that's how I kind of navigate that. Again, I definitely think about the money. I think about what's going to go up. I think about what's going to retain value. I think about how I'm going to build the biggest collection on the salary that I can afford. I like money. It's fun to be rich because you can buy lots of things. It's great to not have financial anxiety and to have financial security. And it's wonderful to be able to have enough money in this world to protect yourself, your family, and all that, and then also do amazingly cool projects to give back to people and charity and all those sorts of things. All of that. I think about all of that when I'm collecting and when I'm putting, money, real money into this that I could be giving to charity, that I could be doing those other sorts of things. I do that also, but it's at the end of the day, like, if you don't love what you're collecting and it's just all about what's going to retain value, you're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to have a lot of fun along the way, and you're not going to learn. I think learning something is so important to enjoyment, at least for me. And for me, learning about the history, learning about the stories, learning about the origins of the card, learning about the market fundamentals around the card, learning about the psychology of the market, right? Part of what's been so fascinating and interesting, and part of why I like talking about this stuff and running this channel, is thinking about all of the psychology of the market. Thinking, it's all learning, right? We're all learning things about how prices work around these types of items, how prices work of modern vintage. These are lessons that you're going to take through your life, and it's interesting, right? So all of that's really enjoyable. But if at the end of the day, you sit down and you look at your binders and you look at your cards and you're like, meh, like, I'd be honest with yourself and think, is there something that you could do with these items that would do more for other people or more for yourself? Or do you really get a lot of pleasure out of it? And I think that can get lost. Kituri says, hey Jake, what's your opinion on the Japanese Monk Scream cards? Do you have any in your collection? I do have some in my collection. I think they're really cool. I really like them. They've gone up hugely in price. there are better options for those prices. For me, if you know about a lot of the old Japanese promos that I think are really cool, and are cheaper and are rarer and are harder to get, particularly in high grade, you know about those, but you still like the screen promos better, go for the screen promos. Absolutely. People love those. They're great. I love them too. But, when I say negative things about cards, I think some people think I don't like that card, or I don't think that it could go up, or that sort of thing. For me, it's often that there are just so many options, learning about all the play promo cards, learning about all the Korokoro, learning about all the Versus Series cards, learning about the different Magi cards. Like, do you know the Magi cards from 1999, 2000, 2001? Do you know what those look like? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Once you do all of that, that's the type of research I would do. I would learn about all the different options before you start putting lots of money into things just because someone comes online and tells you that that's a thing to buy. All right. And then you want to go look at the pop reports. You want to go look at the price history. You want to try to understand. You want to come with me questions, right? Hey, I noticed this old vintage card that seems really cool, but it doesn't have a high price point. Is that because no one likes it, that no one graded it? Or is it because it's really rare and this is like an undiscovered gem, right? That's the type of stuff that I think shows that you're really engaged, in the hobby, and where I think everyone should work to get to. Now, it can take years to get there. And it's a constantly ongoing thing. I'm learning things all the time. There are things that I don't know. There are things that I forget. There are things I should know more. I should probably know all of those sets that we were talking about earlier, by heart. I should have known what was in Emerging Powers, probably, off the top of my head. Part of it is a lack of interest thing in those black and white sets that, but it's great to know all of those things. It's important to track the prices in those sets. Those sets are going to teach you something different that other sets aren't. Those sets are really important because they didn't have a lot of demand, they didn't have a lot of interest, but maybe there isn't that much supply, and maybe it's difficult to grade. What do cards like that do over time? Is there opportunity there financially? Is there something to learn about? Are those cards actually cool? And are people just overly critical and negative of them? Why I own so many Level X cards is because that was my opinion and feeling on the Level X cards. People were extremely critical of them before. Nobody, lots of people were saying that no one likes them, these sorts of things. And I was like, I love them. I think they're really cool looking. There aren't that many. They're hard to pull. The booster boxes are going for a fortune. This makes no sense. I'm buying as many as I possibly can until they eventually, go up, or I'll be happy to have just a binders full for really cheap, right? Because I really like them. Okay, so that's the type of stuff. D-Spill says, I've seen you talking a lot about Dragon Ball Super. I've been doing some research, and some of the prices are already insanely expensive for a 3-year-old game. Is that all speculation or hype? So the stuff that I'm going into is the score stuff, which is the vintage, sort of the Wizards of the Coast, to compare it to Pokemon, some of the vintage Dragon Ball Z. Now, there are different vintage Dragon Ball Z products. Score is the sort of like longest running kind of like American product within there. Bandai also had some products throughout the years. Artbox did some products before. You want to learn about the whole history before you decide which ones you like the best, and then also which ones are probably going to be the most investable or most collectible for other people as well, which is what I did. I learned about as much of it as I possibly could. You also have some really interesting things like Mayhem, for those of you who are pretty, card nerds and know a lot about cards. You have these, Mayhem was a kind of really unique game that had different animes were sort of represented in the card game. A number of the cards and one set of the cards is Dragon Ball Z. Some really cool, interesting arts in there. Like, there's a lot of old vintage DBZ art and DBZ cards, just like Pokemon. A lot of untapped stuff there. Again, Dragon Ball Z in general is an incredibly popular product, incredibly popular EP. Lots of fun stuff to learn about, lots of fun stuff to collect. The fact that DBS is so expensive just makes me a lot more confident in some of this old stuff. the fact that modern Pokemon is so expensive makes me more confident in the old vintage stuff. Now, the problem with score stuff is it wasn't as popular as WotC, but it was very popular. Lots and lots of people played that game. Lots and lots of people did enjoy that game. All right. And Panini, which came after it, which had sort of reprints of it, also had quite a bit of popularity until it died out suddenly, and boxes went to nothing. There are some old, DBZ, like hard-ass type cards that are quite expensive, particularly in high grade. There's quite a market. Now, DBS is going for so much. Like, the vintage compared to DBS is so out of whack in DBZ compared to Pokemon, even. Like, if we think modern is overpriced, modern is a lot less than vintage. If you look at DBZ, the modern, except for certain vintage items, the modern is more expensive than the vintage. It's nutso. So it's interesting to see if DBS continues to do well and those cards continue to go up in value over time. I cannot see how these scorecards that are so much rarer, so much harder to pull, so much more difficult to grade, so many fewer boxes. Like, it's a gold mine there. When you look at it that way, again, do not buy or collect anything that you don't love, that you don't have a passion for, that you aren't going to look into. Naruto has a huge fan base. There's also a lot of interesting stuff there. I am not a Naruto fan, so I'm not going to collect or be involved in Naruto, because although I think the cards are cool and I've seen them, and I'd be interested in maybe doing it a little bit just to kind of, because I like collecting things, it's not going to be a passion, okay? Whereas Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Harry Potter were the top three. Yu-Gi-Oh! Just slightly under that in terms of a connection to my life. Derek Schwartz Music says, do you need help making thumbnails? Yeah, what do you guys think? Yeah, like, I might start making thumbnails that actually, like, bring people in again, or attempting it. Probably a good idea to do. If you want to reach out to me on Instagram with some thumbnail ideas, some things that you think, I want it to be, and we also need a logo on this channel eventually, and I've talked to some people have sent me some logos. Something that isn't cheesy, that gets the spirit of this channel, that isn't hype, that isn't, but that maybe makes us look more professional or serious here to draw more people in. Something like that is probably something that I should look into doing. Omnipoke says, not a Naruto fan. Crying emoji. I have watched quite a bit of the series, Joe, and I did like it, but I actually watched it as an adult, not as a kid, and so I don't have the, so I shouldn't say I'm not a fan of it, because I actually really liked the show, but I'm not like, it doesn't have that, the stuff that you do as a kid, I think just hits you in a different way. Yeah, the stuff, because the other animes I watched as a kid, I watched, like, the Rurouni Kenshin one, if I'm even saying that right, and a little bit, and that was mainly it. I mean, mostly Dragon Ball Z was the main one I watched, and I was watching it on, like, Cartoon Network. All right, I'm gonna go back to where we were. I jumped to the bottom of the chat just to see what people were saying. It says, so $15K in DBS right now isn't crazy. So that $15,000, if you're talking about that Trunks First Edition box, no box that I know has ever sold that high. That person's asking for a way higher price than it's been. Will it sell at $15,000 or near $15,000? It could. That is the most expensive box. That and sort of the Frieza Limited box are the two kind of most expensive boxes in the hobby. From people I've talked to, they are rarer and harder to come by than anything in Pokemon, rarer than the Deoxys boxes, that sort of thing. The thing you have to be aware of is that the pull rates in Dragon Ball Z are much worse than Pokemon. The pull rates for the ultra rares are like 1 in 12 boxes, versus 1 and 2 for gold stars. So the expected value is crazy low. So it also creates this interesting dynamic where the ultra rares are actually should be extremely valuable. And the boxes maybe not quite as much in Pokemon, because in Pokemon, right, your expected value, particularly on WotC, the holos is where the value's at, and you're pulling a bunch of holos per each set, which helps push up the value of the booster boxes. In DBZ, you don't get that. So I almost hate spilling all of my I've worked hard to gather this information, to do this sort of stuff, but give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek. All right. The person who is spamming, I just put them in a timeout. Please do not spam. We've been really great here, where we have no moderator and everyone's just like super respectful. So please, let's continue that. Well, yeah, I mean, John and I talk pretty much every day about DBZ in private, or most days. John is Pokemon Raider. All right, let's do some more Pokemon questions. Jake, Connor B says, Jake, if you had to buy one today, would you rather buy a PSA 10 first edition base set Charizard or a PSA 10 no rarity Japanese base set Charizard? God, what a great question, Connor. So, Pokemon Radar's here. What's up, John? Yeah, it's such a tough choice. So I know someone who basically sold a PSA 10 first edition Charizard this year to try and get the no rarity Charizard in PSA 10, because the no rarity is so much harder to find, and there are so many. It's just a much rarer card. And it's the first, genuinely first card. I don't know. I'd be worried. I think just as a collector, I think that I would rather have the base set first edition in English, because it just connects with me a bit more than just having that no rarity symbol not being there in the corner. If I had to choose, I would want both. I do love the Japanese look of the cards. In terms of value, like what I think will be more valuable over time, such a hard call. I think I'm not going to answer because I don't want to, who knows? I think that it's I guess if I had to choose, I think the safer option is definitely going to be the base set first edition in English. Hands down is going to be the safer option. There's likely going to be more demand for it, but if demand ever really shifts, and if people start wanting that original Japanese because it was the first printing, and then people realize that card, how little that card is, and there are people who just absolutely need it. Then it's possible that that card could be more valuable. I know that there are some people, certainly including this person, who would way prefer that card. And when there aren't that many of them in the world, all you need is a few like really passionate buyers with deep pockets, and you could see it go for a lot. That's what I would say. Goldex My Place says, random question. What are your thoughts on vintage tobacco cards, like late 1800s to 1900 era? I've looked up the price of them, and they're criminally cheap, in my opinion. Great art and very historic. Yeah, I've actually did the same thing and looked at them a little bit. I don't have strong opinions, but it's just funny because I was, just to do research, I was interested in how old cards have done that maybe weren't particularly, that haven't maintained their popularity, and I was trying to figure out why certain old items haven't maintained their popularity even if they were fairly rare, because I want to do long-term predicting on what Pokemon is going to do and figure out when I should sell my collection or aspects of my collection, and I'm just very interested in all that sort of stuff. So that's the type of research I suggest everyone does, is look at these older long-term collectibles, study that market, see what it's done over time. I reach out to people who are selling. I ask them questions. I reach out to many, many people. How I get a lot of my knowledge is I engage with people. You reach out. People love sharing knowledge, often love talking about what they know when you're passionate and interested in also. And I always share information back. So people are telling me to call Radar in. I don't even know how to do that, guys. I would do it if I could. I don't know how. I'm on like a free Zoom right now, or I'm on a free stream thing here. If I knew how to call someone in, I'd bring him in. John and I can certainly do a live together. I'm sure both of us would be very up for it. We're we're in contact constantly and definitely friends at this point. If you'd like to see me and John talk, we can definitely do a live stream. We could do a pure DBZ live stream if some people wanted it. I know there are probably a number of people here just for Pokemon. So Super Glitch says, is Pokemon still considered a pop culture collectible versus an established collectible? So there's no definition of like what is pop culture or what is established. I would view them more as a, first of all, it's always going to be a pop culture collectible in the sense that that's what it is, you know. But it could be an established pop culture collectible or a fairly established collectible. It's just semantics. I don't know. I don't know what makes where I would define something being established or not established. The way I talk about it on this channel is becoming more established, and really what established means is seeing stable price points over a long period of time. And why Pokemon is very unestablished is because the prices are very unestablished, because the prices are all over the place and are moving up and down constantly. And there's mostly new people in the hobby and mostly people who aren't sure what to pay for items and don't know all of the items yet. When the majority of the market knows about all of the items, the majority of the market knows about, all the details, the pop reports, has all the information, and likely that will also help establish price points. And we're going to see, I think, the cards and the things we talk about on this channel are going to be the ones that are going to hold up value and do the best when that type of stuff happens. There will become more established price points around those items. Now, what can happen, even within that, is you're going to have periods that are more stable and periods that are less stable. You're going to have growth periods, you're going to have bust periods, you're going to have more stable periods still. And of course, we've had that in Pokemon in the past too. But I would like to see 10, 20 years of pretty stable, growth, and that don't have these insane 10 times boom periods before I would, call something like this, any sort of like established in terms of having like established price points. Joe Carr, it says a pure DBZ live stream would be great. Well, if enough people would want something like that, we can do it. All right. All right, let's see what else we got here. I also think studying and learning about DBZ can help your Pokemon knowledge too. And I know if you're fairly new or you feel like I'm so overwhelmed by Pokemon, yeah, definitely working on Pokemon, getting a handle on what there is in Pokemon, but understanding other markets can help you with that as well. Michael Spalding says, do you think that Pokemon Pop Series 3-packs are at a stable price point? I don't know where to look to find the answer. So I don't know offhand something that specific. what I will say is the best way to figure that out is to look at eBay sold listings. Unfortunately, there isn't, talk to people who deal in it. If someone is selling it, you can reach out to them and ask, like, what have they seen? Trying to make those connections on very specific items, understand who are the big players who own a lot of the product. Like, if you really want to compete, that's the type of stuff, like, you're competing against people who do that. So, like, that's the level, like, that's, now, if you just want to collect and have fun and don't want to do all of that work and effort and that doesn't seem fun or interesting, that's totally understandable. Then it's sort of like, well, I would at least do a check on eBay just to see what the sold prices are. If you feel comfortable paying whatever the price is, go for it. That type of thing. Silverhawk says, was there an error with the stream earlier? Yes. We had like an internet go down. I couldn't get back into that stream, so I started a new stream. I'm sure people, have been filing in here. And what I did say earlier and what I will say again now, if everyone can take a second who hasn't to like the stream, and please sub to our channel if you're enjoying the content, if you get value from here. I am going to work on trying to grow the channel so that we can have a broader reach in the Pokemon community. So if you want to support us here, please do that. I'm going to use the greater attention, the greater size of the channel to help other smaller channels to give back to the community. So please do that. Momo, there is no spoon, says, Jake, do you think it's now a good time to buy some good WotC? Since all the big attention is on Modern right now. Yes. So we touched on that we touched on that earlier in the stream a little bit. Yes. I would say, it makes me a little bit more confident. The fact that people are willing to spend so much money on Modern makes me a little more comfortable with spending more on Vintage right now. Definitely, it's what I would be buying if I was buying stuff for investment and I wanted to hold on for a long period, for over 5 years. I think 3 to 5 years, Modern could be really hot and hotter than Vintage. It's possible we're entering into an era where Modern might be hotter. So if you're looking to flip, what I would do is I would actually really study eBay, and I would look for trends, and I'd look for price trends if you can find them. I'd look to see what is selling the most. I would actually be buying very high demand items, try to get them for low, and I'd be flipping them into the market and trying to compete there. There are going to be a lot of people doing that. There's also a lot of risk of sudden retraces on items. Any items that can go up really quickly, like these Modern items can retrace really quickly. And Modern can retrace much faster and more intense than Vintage because of the amount of cards. So for example, like, let's theoretically, these buyout groups that may or may not be buying out whatever they're buying out right now, those full art cards, if someone with 100 cards and a lot of people with 100 cards who maybe push, there might be a lot of people out there with 50 to 100 of these cards, let's just say, try to suddenly sell a couple on the market, and all of a sudden, the prices started going down. They may panic, try to sell more. Other people may panic when it starts to go down, try to undercut them, and it might be a disaster for someone who has 100 of those cards, and they might lose a lot of money. So that's how those things can happen with Modern. That can't happen with a PSA 10 First Edition Neo card, or a PSA 10 E-Series card, or even a PSA 10 Jungle Fossil Rocket Gym Challenge base set card, because there just isn't enough supply. You could have one very bad sale, but you're not going to have lots of people undercut themselves. It's going to be easier for those prices to stabilize. Now, things like Unlimited, particularly like Unlimited Base, there was enough supply for people to panic, undercut each other, like on that Charizard, on a lot of those cards. But it's going to be even worse and even quicker in Modern if it happens on some of those things. And that's what people don't understand, and that's why I worry for that. Now, what I will say is, a lot of money to be made in Modern, particularly if you are, guessing correctly. I do think there's a lot of guessing involved, unfortunately. Of course, if you run a huge YouTube channel, you can make a lot of money. I'm not saying anyone's doing this, but you could hype up cards and, certainly buy them out. You could pump and dump. Silverhawk says, that's awesome, man. Supporting the YouTuber/Poketuber community. Yeah, my goal is definitely to get channels that I think are here to help collectors and are not necessarily honestly trying to make a business. I'm going to try and move them as far forward as possible. I'm not against people trying to do businesses, but I also think that it'd be good to get some of these, these people who are working basically for free, who have a ton of experience and ton of knowledge. And I'm only going to choose channels, please don't ask me, I don't want to be flooded with, please promote my channel, that sort of stuff. You're welcome to please say, can you check out my channel? I hope no one's going to be offended. But I am going to do it for channels that I think are really doing the research that I'm talking about, have in-depth knowledge, and have bought and sold a lot and really understand the market, because I want people to get as much good advice and to hear it from a lot of places and become kind of accustomed to it. That's one of my goals. So again, liking and subscribing helps us achieve that. All right. Cardinal Gaming says, Jake, a distributor has Hidden Fates ETBs at 150 each. I should buy them all, right? Watsy Fetish's question: How do you keep up with reflecting yourself? If you have to give a short tip, what's the best way to make self-reflection something that comes naturally? Okay, so being introspective. So it depends on your personality to some degree. For some people, kind of, because it can easily go into neuroticism, actually, self-reflection. For some people, it's kind of comes more naturally, I think, to think a lot about their feelings and thoughts and then kind of analyze them and sometimes ruminate on them, and can cause anxiety and neuroticism and some negative things. But there's a lot of good that can come with that type of self-reflection and analysis, a lot of wisdom that can come out of that. For people who don't do it as naturally, things like journaling can be really good. Writing down your thoughts and feelings, practicing that habit, it might train your brain or make your mind do that more often. I've seen that be effective for some people. Having conversations with other people, asking people what they think of you is a really good way to increase your awareness of who you are. Often who we think we are is certainly can be pretty accurate, and we can have a pretty good sense of who we are, but sometimes other people will tell us things that we're very surprised, like, I didn't see myself that way, that's very interesting, why do you see myself that way? That type of stuff can help you think more critically and be more self-reflective. In a business environment or an investing environment, that's part of what we're going to hopefully do on the channel, right? We're going to challenge each other's thoughts. People will call me, if I'm biased on something, they'll make me reflect on it. Am I really biased, or are they just not understanding what I'm saying? And we can kind of have that back and forth. All of that stuff is all engaging with other people, having those conversations makes us all more self-reflective. Okay. So, self-reflection and introspection is an excellent tool that human beings have to help engage with our environment in a more effective way and achieve what we want and understand other people's needs. It also is very important in giving other people what they want or what they need. If you're not very aware of what other people need or want from you, how are you going to be of service to anyone, or be of value to anyone else and make anyone else's lives better? So it's also very important to not be selfish, is to do that sort of work. But it can turn into sort of neuroticism and anxiety when you ruminate on it a lot. And so some people have to learn how to meditate or take breaks from that sort of intense analysis of everything all the time, because it can be overwhelming, particularly if the thoughts are very conflicting and anxiety producing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. They're often working through very important real dilemmas and real conflicts in life. But they sometimes need breaks from that, or need tools to learn how to compartmentalize that, so that they can function and keep the rest of their lives going, that sort of thing. Drop it into therapy mode here. All right, let's go back to Pokemon. Although a little therapy, a little free talking about therapy and these types of things is probably good, given the year that probably a lot of us have had. And I do think it also relates to being a good investor. I think having good mental health and stability, and also being and enjoying collecting. I think all these things are very related. All right, Packfresh says, what do you think about LCS changing costs to keep up with third-party pricing? I understand they need to make a living, but at what point do you draw the line? LCS was supposed to be our home base. They have to make a living. They have to support their employees. They're going to know what their internal numbers look like. They're going to know how much they need to charge in order to make a certain amount of profit. Are they going to be overcharging in some instances? Are card stores going to be trying to make, charging more than they need to because they can? It's a weird place, right? Like, if I can sell something as a seller for a higher amount, am I not going to give someone a deal? I will in some instances. In other instances, I might not. So it's part of this is I think the fun of competition. We're all competitors trying to get cards from each other, and we're all trying to get them at good prices. So there's a level of, if we're honest, there's a level of competition involved in all of this. It's part of why people like it. It gets the testosterone going. We're trying to win. We're trying to compete with each other and outmaneuver each other on one level. And then on another level, we're a community and we want to develop relationships and treat each other well and care for each other. And so wherever you're at in sort of that spectrum is a good place to look at. It's part of why I say people who are purely businesses and purely trying to make money and maybe don't love the cards or don't have much interest in Pokemon, there are people that you might have to be a little bit more cautious with, that they're going to be very focused on getting as much money from you as possible. You might have friends in the community who are going to give you better deals, who are going to look after you a little bit more, who aren't going to be as cutthroat. But then you're going to have businesses who are extremely compassionate businesses and want to make profit and make a certain amount of money, but also want to provide, really, really care about providing excellent value to their customers. And that's why they do it. That's a big part of why they get up in the morning. And if they could make a lot more money doing something else than selling Pokemon in a lot of instances, or other cards, particularly before this year, but, this year's been crazy for all sorts of reasons. But I think all of that, everyone is an individual, and we don't always know what people's intentions are. I think you have to be careful assuming bad things about people and negative things about people. I think giving people second chances, forgiving people, waiting to not be so intensely judgmental, and waiting to hear all the facts of a situation before jumping in on someone, all of that stuff is good. So those are my general thoughts on that. It's a good question. I'm not a card store owner. I've never been a card store owner. I don't know the margins that they need to operate on. I have heard, I certainly have a number of, I have friends who are card store owners, and they talk to me about it, so I have some insight, but a lot of it also depends on, what products they carry, the size of their store. Are they just an online business? All that sort of stuff. Andrew M. says, I'm 100% not loyal to my LGS due to pricing out scalpers. Created a real toxic environment. Yeah, I think that, I don't know your personal experience on Story, but, business owners can do some really scummy things. And, I would be careful. This doesn't just go to you, what I was talking about before. I'd be careful jumping to conclusions too quickly. This isn't at you, Andrew M. You may have done your research and really know what they're doing, right? And have been really disgusted and grossed out. But it can be easy to jump to negative conclusions without knowing the full story in life. And hate can be very contagious, particularly when we're living in a very, polarized, angry, negative environment. It can be very contagious to assume everyone is scamming and everyone's negative and everyone's awful, when really, that isn't true. There are plenty of people who are actually trying to provide you value and do care about you. And then there are other people who maybe are competing with you, but they don't hate you. And then there are other people who might view you as an enemy and they hate you, and they're very toxic and very negative and are quite dangerous people. But that's generally very few people are like that. And even those people are like that often for a reason. So, that's the way I view life and view human beings. And that we're all human beings, and none of us are really all that different from each other in terms of the human condition that we experience. But the reality is the vast differences in our lives and experiences, and also the differences in our genetics, cause us to be behave in certain ways, have certain morals and certain ethics, but to have sort of an understanding of that, what degree of control you had over that, and a little humility with that when you're sort of judging or angry at others for their viewpoints, for their beliefs, for their ethics, how they decide to live, how they choose to live. But you do have to protect yourself because the reality is that when someone is pretty antisocial or sociopathic or what have you, or narcissistic, they're going to go further than most people in terms of taking everything they can from you and taking full advantage of anything you'll give them, and you will be left with nothing sort of in return and very little back. So you can get sucked of your money, sucked of your energy, all that sort of stuff. So you have to be careful with that. So I got a little philosophical there, but I think it's important when we even talk about dealing and collaborating with people in this community, in this environment, doing deals with people. Who am I buying from? Who am I selling to? Right? We're all human beings who make up this market. Proverb says, hey, Jake, is there a way we could reach out to you so we could send you some ideas about the hobby or channel? I'd like to hear thoughts on an idea I have for a video. Absolutely. You can reach me at Pokenomics_ with an underscore at the end on Instagram. So it's not, I haven't posted a picture there in months, but it's how I communicate with most people. There is also an email on the channel that you can email to. I don't check it too often, to be honest, and I'm not necessarily going to get back to everyone because I get too many messages and I have a full-time job. So I apologize for that in advance. It doesn't mean that I don't care about you and I don't care about your message. I absolutely do. It's just the reality of like what's doable for me. But please feel free to reach out to me ideas. I might get back to you, I might not. Hopefully you won't be offended. Marzo says business is business. Pokemon with Jake and CG Dewwork says, thoughts on Pokemon Center's recent 25th anniversary skateboard debacle and how they should handle future special drops like special delivery Charizard. So, not too many thoughts. I think that I don't know the ins and outs. My understanding, and I've just heard this a little bit, is that they had like a site issue, right, where it crashed or something, or it said that it was sold out when it wasn't, something. And then later people got messages saying that they could buy it at a later time. Some issues. I'm not a tech person. I don't know what they have to do to get the site ready for the incredible wave of people that are probably going to go after that special delivery Charizard. There's a ton of money to be made, right? So people are going to do, when there's a lot of money to be made, people are going to jump through more hoops and do more to get that money. Usually. And so that might mean anything from, getting a bunch of people together to try to all time it, to doing some sort of tech bot situation. I don't really know if that's possible. I'm sure they have countermeasures on the Pokemon Store side that they're trying to make it, that just people who are, want to buy one thing or two things can get one of those cards. I don't know. Not my area of expertise or knowledge. I'm sure there are people in the chat who have a lot more expertise and knowledge in that. Pabmeister says, what do you think about the burnout a lot of creators are experiencing right now? So again, this is actually the second time someone asked me that. I don't know of the burnout. If there are specific people who have talked about it on their channel, you can let me know below. And I did answer it a little bit before, but the basic response I had was that, you know, it's natural that people get exhausted. One, being a YouTuber can burn you out when you don't enjoy what you're doing, or you're talking about the same thing all the time, or your main goal is to grow and you're not growing, you're not making money, you're putting a lot of time in. All of that can certainly burn a person out, very understandably, or not have a person want to keep making videos, or seeing other people, you know, growing or making a lot of money when you're not, and that type of thing can certainly affect you. It's part of why I want to help some channels who I really enjoy grow, because I want to encourage them to continue building their communities, because it would be a big loss if a lot of these channels stopped making videos. I really enjoy them. Yeah. So, what I would say is, like, people should take breaks. We need to be kind and understand the level of effort and work that goes into it. I think liking videos, subscribing to people you watch to support them, is really important, particularly when they're small channels. I think, oddly, it's sort of the opposite happens, that, you know, and I said this earlier, it's like the big channels, because they have a lot of subscribers, people view them as better, or, you know, more important, or, you know, more valuable, when you know, that isn't necessarily the case, and some of the smaller channels don't get the respect, or you know, or the positive feedback that, you know, and a lot of that's just because of fame, you know, and hype, and if we really dig down into it, you know, psychologically. So you know, you guys can help by supporting people, by being kind to them, by, when you disagree with them or argue with them, try to come from a place of facts and of understanding that they're not trying to, you know, most of these people are not trying to scam you and are not trying to hurt you, and they're doing this for fun, for enjoyment, and maybe as a side gig to make a little extra money, or to get through a hard time in their own life. So just having, like, a little bit of humanity. I also think people can take a break. I think that the market also, you know, prices and prices going up and down and things swinging all over the place can be very emotionally taxing and exhausting following all of that. I think the being very unpredictable, the market being very unpredictable, causes a lot of burnout, because there's a lot of surprises constantly, and we don't know what to buy, and we're getting asked tons of questions left and right, and we're very right here and very wrong there, and, you know, all of that type of stuff. I think for me, what's helped is that I love Pokemon so much. I love investing so much and finance so much. And I like talking and engaging with other people and meeting other people, that it's helped me not burn out. But even for me, there's times I pretty much always look forward to this. Like, I think maybe one week I didn't want to do it, but every other week I've always been, like, excited for it and looking forward to it. There were videos that I, like, wasn't that excited to make, but I felt like would be good for people. There are videos that I think I probably should make that would be very helpful to people that I don't really want to make because I find them boring to make, and it's not my thing, you know? So there's all of that in being a content creator. But, you know, let people know that you appreciate them. Jamie J. Meyer says, Pat Flynn, your film work is amazing. Definitely in the top 10% of YouTube creators. Truly inspiring to anyone that takes video seriously. Yeah, like someone like Pat. Like, part of why, you know, Pat doesn't need my help. You know, Pat's going to be successful in this space. But part of why I'm encouraging Pat and I'm encouraging people to go encourage him is because I want him to keep going. I don't want him to get tired or burned out. The amount of work and beauty and the music and the cuts, and it's so stylish and fun to watch. And I love Pokemon. So seeing it being done that way is awesome, you know, and I'm so bored of, like, certain, you know, of seeing the same type of thing and of the same type of money talk. So people trying to do different things with music, with creativity, you know, it's part of why I like Top 10 Pokemon's channel, you know, even though we don't always agree necessarily on, like, some fundamental stuff, like, we agree on a lot, and I'm sure we'd agree on most things. Huge fan of him, huge supporter. Guy puts in a ton of work, beautiful channel. Love the editing he does, love his personality, right? Like, support these people, you know? And there's so many that I don't know, and I'm sorry. If I knew your channels, I would say your channels too. Rainy Day Collectibles, another great channel here. PokeGeekdom says, Jake, are content creators in the case of shilling for Modern a product of the endowment effect or just a confirmation bias due to the recent explosion of prices? Yeah, so I think it's a few different things. I think some of them, I could end up being wrong, but again, if Modern holds its value and goes up over time, it would be the first collectible like that to ever do that, from my understanding or my knowledge. So my feeling, my gut, is that they don't know the other markets that well, or they would be more hesitant to be giving that advice, because I don't think these people are bad people, and they'd be talking more about risk, because people need to hear the risks, because if they're spending a lot of money thinking that they're going to make a lot of money, it could put people in a very bad situation, and it could really hurt a lot of people. And I think we are in danger with some of these channels of having like pump and dumpy situations where even if the content creator isn't using it for pump and dump, the people who watch the channel are using it. So I think there's a lot of that happening on these channels where there's an echo chamber where people are pumping up the thing that they own, that they want to make money on, and it's all a bunch of BS. There isn't good information happening in those chat. Like it's a bunch of people trying to manipulate the market for their own gain. And again, I get it. This is a competitive space. People want to make money. I'm not even that against it. I think that people should be, can do that. I think what I worry is that people don't know how to differentiate the difference between someone pumping cards and people giving you positives and negatives of what's good about a card, what's not good about a card, and talking about these other collectible hobbies and what happened in these down eras and what happened in these overprinted eras and it's all risk. Nothing is for sure. Nothing is for sure, even in the long term. Things are more likely going to be for sure in the long term than in the short term is like a complete crapshoot. They're more likely to follow a similar pattern to these other collectibles in the long run, but not for sure. So definitely confirmation bias as well. People see the prices going up. They then are like, oh, this is a valuable item. You get more people jumping on it. It keeps going up, and then it's a bit of that greater fool theory, and it's a mean way of talking about it, but it's like, who's going to follow that price up until there's no one to buy it at the end? And then you're going to see it come back down. There's risk on that on a lot of these items. We've seen that on a lot of modern items over the past couple years. Yes. And so there's also this more difficult thing to talk about, which is that because so many people own those cards, there's a lot more people who want those cards to be valuable and go up than want these rarer cards to go up. And so there's a lot more bias there because there's a lot more people who own them and want want those to go up because that's where they're going to make their money, and are biased against things like trophy cards, for example, irrationally biased in a lot of cases, because they don't own them and they can't afford them. And I get that. And even if that's not conscious, even if that's unconscious, it's going to be in the market, and it's not a personal attack on anyone. It's just a reality for people to be aware of, that often the most common things during really high demand periods are the things that get talked about the most, moved the most, because most people have a vested interest in it. The issue is who is going to buy all of it in 10 to 20 years when you're going to look to flip it? Who's going to buy all of it in a year to 2 years? Are there going to be new people that you're going to sell on the same thing? Or are there going to be no new people? And then everyone actually bought it, not because they wanted it for those prices, but because they wanted to sell it. And now who's going to buy it all? That's the stuff you have to watch out for. I think that there are other content creators who are just trying to make as much money as possible, and you have to be careful, particularly with those. How do you know? You can't really know. It's almost just the law of just like how many people are in the space. I mean, if you look at the crypto space, so many people, like these pump and dump schemes around these crypto, it's the exact same stuff around certain cards potentially. People can just start a hype up a card, pump it, and then dump it. It's not hard, and you make real money, like a lot of money. doing that. So there's a lot of reason why people would do it. It's not a and this stuff happens in all over the place in things. So it's not this isn't a conspiracy theorist. This is the real world, the real marketplace where people are competing. Louise Underwood says, if cognitive behavioral therapy is cool, consider me Miles Davis. Cognitive behavioral therapy expert in the house. Poké Dynamics, thoughts on reverse holo rares versus regular holo rares from the EX era. Do the reverse holo stamps or unique holo patterns, like from Fire Leaf Green, deserve a premium? Yeah, interesting question. There isn't a clear answer to it. The couple of things I would think about is what's actually rarer. And you can actually do the math, right? Is it harder to pull a specific holo card, or is it actually harder to pull a specific reverse holo card? Often case it's harder to pull the specific reverse holo, depending on how many holos are in their set, and depending on how many cards have a reverse holo in a set. So you want to sit down and do the math to see what's rarer to get to start there. Second thing to do is to it's not second. The hard part is the subjective part. Do people want the plain holo, or do people want the reverse holo, which is cool and has that thing? And I think that a lot of people want the reverse holo. Interestingly, I didn't want it for most sets because there's something for me just about having that actual holo pulled in the holo slot that I like. But I also have reverse holo cards from those sets, plenty of reverse holo stars, but it wasn't my main focus, and I do definitely like them, and I get why people like them, and I get why people would like them more, 100% on a subjective level, but all that stuff is going to be sort of, person-to-person type of thing. Radizor says liquidity is also something to keep in mind. Things are easy to sell now due to high interest, but the market is very likely not going to be like this forever. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And when you're thinking about what to buy to and what to invest in as well, the high demand items are going to be the most liquid items. So, investing in trophy cards or investing in certain high items, like, they may not be that liquid, particularly in downer periods. You may see a higher return, and certainly I think you're going to see less of a retrace on some of these things, depending on the item. But they might be very, very difficult to sell. So, these are the types of things that are great to buy. One, only, if you love them and enjoy them, and two, if you want to keep them for a long time and are in zero rush to sell and are happy to wait for years, right, on it. That type of thing. Scott G says that 100% agree with Jake. Agrees with me. I enjoy the main set holo cards instead of the reverse. Yeah, I think it's kind of I can see I can see why people would like either. It's one of those types of things. Whereas for me, like, obviously, like, the reverse holos, to me at least from E series, I don't really like them that much. I own quite a bit of them because they were very cheap and they are very difficult to get and hard to grade. But they're so hard to get because there's so many cards in some of those sets, and so the rarity did appeal to me. But in terms of just the look of them, the holos are so much prettier and they're so much cooler looking, I think. Blitz Foray says, interestingly, as I was saying, that the reverse holos from E series are pretty to look at. My Mary's Impulse is my example. So the reverse holos of cards that didn't have a holo are great. For example, like that Expedition Charizard, a lot of people, including myself, I think, like the and the Venusaur for sure. For me, I like the Venusaur art better from the rare card that doesn't have a holo version, and so getting a reverse of that was my option to get a holo version of that. Lots of little things in there. People talking about Flesh and Blood. Yeah, listen. I don't know if do you guys really feel like Rudy is pumping Flesh and Blood? Maybe he is, maybe, but I feel like he's kind of, yeah, I mean, I guess he probably is. I mean, honestly, I haven't watched a ton of those videos. I feel like I like his vibe, and I feel like he generally gives, like, pretty grounded stuff, but he certainly, like, has talked about it a lot. So even putting it on his channel a lot is gonna make a lot of people buy it or have a lot of people be interested in it. So I don't know. I mean, I like, yeah, I it's hard with me for Rudy because I just like there's something about Rudy that I just really trust. I don't, and I'm usually not that trusting of a person, and it's possible he's like such a scam artist and all that stuff, but like I just there's something about him that feels very authentic and trustworthy to me. And generally, people who are very charismatic but are kind of narcissistic, sociopathic-y, I feel like I'm good at sussing out the difference usually, and I usually get these like warning signs because I don't feel a full kind of more complicated personality behind it. It feels kind of simple, and usually there isn't a lot of depth to it. I feel like Rudy has a lot of depth, but who knows? I'm one man. That's my opinion. Scott G says he unsubscribed because he hated the constant flesh and blood videos. Yeah, I don't know. Pokedynamic says that he only trusts creepy Rudy when he's wearing the pink visor. Yeah, Rudy's so funny. I love his humor and just like the vibe of that channel. That was the first channel, that and SM Pratt and Gem and Pokemon were sort of the three channels I was watching the most when I first got into this whole thing. But his channel was the one that I like didn't miss a video, and I don't even play Magic or interested in Magic, so that really tells you something. Arnoful A says thoughts about Bitcoin. So I'm not a Bitcoin expert. I think that there's a lot of scammy stuff and hype in the Bitcoin world. It's extremely unregulated. There are a lot of like really sketchy coins. As a concept, could it possibly take off and be extremely valuable because it's a hedge against like inflation, and because you can't make more of it, unlike any other asset, any other thing you can find more of it, like maybe like there's something logically to that concept, but yeah, I'd be careful. Watsy Fetish says creepy Rudy and scumbag Pratt, unstoppable duo. Yeah, Jimmy Jim Mayer says, I think Rudy just has faith in flesh and blood and with Magic making wrong decisions. Yeah, I kind of feel something like Cardinal Mason was saying too. I kind of feel like he just likes it, and so he can't help but talk about it, and it's fun, and it's getting views, and people are interested in watching. Should he be more careful? Should he be saying like this probably isn't a good investment, and I don't know, and doing more of that hedge stuff? Probably, but he's so damn like he's so entertaining. It's like I almost don't care. And I guess for me, it's just like I would never buy Flesh and Blood because Rudy says it. I just like enjoy watching him talk about things he's passionate about. But are other people buying it because Rudy is saying it? Now, he's not saying it's a good investment, I think. If he's saying everyone should invest in it, that'd be different. I kind of just think like it's fun to watch him talk about something he's passionate in. I don't know. Hyperbole says when big financial backers like PayPal, Square, etc. start backing Bitcoin, it says something. They aren't putting their money into a loser. So that isn't always true. There are plenty of big companies that make big gambles on things and to cover their bases and then end up losing the money because they do a value assessment where it doesn't cost them that much, and the reward is much greater than the risk. So even if they think it might fail or will likely fail, particularly a lot of these coins, the upside is so much that it's worth the risk, the gamble type of thing. But I agree with you in the sense that it doesn't mean that it means that there's something to the idea that is attractive enough to these companies. They're not putting money in there to lose it. So in that sense, I do agree with you. And that might have been where you were going more towards. But when we look at things, these big bubbles, like the tech bubble, again, Amazon came out of it because there's something to the internet. Hello, right? There's something to a lot of those startups, right? There was something to the idea, but for every Amazon, there were 1,000 to 2,000 companies that were evaluated in the many millions of dollars that went to zero, and people lost absolute fortunes. So we'll see. And I am not a crypto expert, so. All right, let's see. Any more Pokemon questions, fellas? Or card questions or life questions? Girls Like My Hair says, what do you think about the Illustrator Charizard and Players Ceremony 2020 cards? I don't know what the Player 2020 Ceremony cards are. Let me look them up. Okay. So, tell me a little bit about these cards, these Player Ceremony cards. They look like they're going for quite a bit of money. There are only 2 of them, it looks like here. I'd have to do research on them to give you kind of a full answer, but it would go back to the same questions that I always try to bring, which is, rarity. Is there something about the art? Is there something about the release? Something about the history that makes it stand out? Rarity isn't enough alone. You also need cool art. You need something that's going to make it jump out and stand the test of time. Just looking at this card, I think it's okay. You've got this championship series Pikachu one, which is pretty. Actually, I like that card. It's pretty cool looking, just off the first hand. I look at sold listings here. A lot are selling. There are a lot listed here, and there are a lot listed here for a pretty high price, which would make me a bit concerned. Again, for that amount of price, for $500, $600, you could be buying much, much rarer staff championship or top 16, top 32 championship cards from Worlds that have the same type of cool looking art that are rarer, older, that sort of thing. So, a lot of it has to do with price point. Rainy Day Collectible says, are you primarily an index fund holder or do you buy individual companies? So now's a good time to say I am not a financial advisor. We're just hanging out, talking stuff. Do not do what I do. I'm not telling you to do that. I actually buy individual stocks and have always done that. But a big part of that is through my father. My father's a financial advisor and does the same thing. And I think that if you have a passion and are very interested and you want to listen to the conference calls and, look at the earnings reports and delve through companies to understand what's really going on, picking individual stocks can be good. I think for the majority of people, index funds, and I'm not repeating anything that I think pretty much any person would say, in these areas, or most people would say, it's a good way to go because you don't have to do the work. There's less risk potentially of something very bad happening to a specific company, particularly if you put too much money in one company. But again, I think with some skill and effort, you can possibly, hopefully, do better by buying individual stocks. The issue with buying individual stocks can be that oftentimes we actually do worse than the market because, as we talked about on this channel, people can have a tendency to behave quite irrationally, particularly if they don't have a lot of experience in investing, and tend to buy things on hype and buy things when prices go up when actually they should be selling, and tend to do the opposite. And so when you buy individual stocks, you're kind of putting yourself in that type of position where you might make more unforced errors or mistakes based on emotion. Whereas if you just drop your money in a bigger index fund and just leave it there for many years, you're more likely to see, as long as patterns hold, that 8 to 12% type gain in the long run. That's that sort of thing. Charles Cold Club president says, we're going to go for about 21 more minutes, guys, by the way, and then I'm going to end for today. So Charles Cold Club president says, do you think Vivid Voltage Amazing Rares are going to be 10,000 value card in 10 years? Do you think that Vivid Voltage Amazing Rares are going to be a 10,000? My brain is so tired, I almost misread that. I do not. Think it's going to be a $10,000 card. Swami says, have you heard of any, that's an interesting question, Swami. Have you heard of any new printers factories opening? I have not, but I'm not sure who in my network would know that stuff and let me know. So I might not be the person who hears about that. Have you heard of anything, Swami? That's an interesting topic. Or Mason, if you're here, or some other people who might know. Johnny Lee says, there's a new Canadian grading company rumored to grade as hard, if not harder than BGS. I'm not sure, though. I'd like to hear opinions. I'm not sure about that. Kenneth Smith says, still filming on a potato, I see. Yeah, on the... I filmed directly on my laptop, and I don't know why the camera quality is so bad on it, but that's what I've been doing on this. And then I film my separate videos in a different room on my phone, and that's why the camera quality is better. I suppose I could film on my phone with this, but there's something about this setup that I prefer, although probably worth doing better for you. Kenneth Lee says, how do you limit your budget on Pokemon spending? So, how do I limit my budget? So I figure out what I feel comfortable to spend, or a certain percentage of my salary. So for me, the way that I function, again, not a financial advisor here, I'm going to repeat that again, because when we go into this territory, it's like, oh boy, this is just how I do things. I feel comfortable spending, I don't like ever having to sell or spend my savings to buy new things to invest in. I like to invest based on cash that I make either by salary or through dividends. So for me, I take a certain percentage of my dividends and salary and I put that into Pokemon, because that's what makes me feel comfortable, because then I'm not risking sort of my long-term safe investments on a much riskier, crazier thing like Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z or something like that. So that is what I would suggest, generally speaking, but not a financial advisor here. That's just what one person here does. It's also what I'm comfortable with. I know there are plenty of big names in Pokemon who have like 90+% of their net worth in Pokemon, crazy huge amounts in Pokemon. That is something that I would never, under any circumstances, do, even if I was a business at this point in my life. But, the younger you are, the less, I think the more it makes sense to potentially take some of those risks, because you have more time to sort of make it up. And potentially, speaking of more energy, you have more life left to work to make it up. But the counter argument to that, against that, is that if you are cautious now and save and just put little bits in like index funds or other sorts of things, it's exponentially going to be worth so much more than it would be if you waited 10-15 years. So, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to decide. And of course, a lot of us are in debt and have large student loans and have all these sorts of things. And so it's, we're all going to be in different financial situations. I think ideally for me, that's how I like to do it. Other people are going to take much bigger risks. Radizor says, I don't think I'd be able to sleep with anything over 50% of my net worth tied up in something that I couldn't liquidate at a moment's notice. Yeah, I think that it's also what type of dividends and or if you're investing in real estate, are you getting cash from it? Or if you're investing in business, are you getting cash from the businesses? So although those things may not be very liquid, you're getting you're making money that you can sort of depend on, which makes me more comfortable with those sorts of things. But certainly, I 100% agree with you, Raz, or like an illiquid item like Pokemon that doesn't net me anything and that could be worth whatever people think it should be worth and whatever people are willing to buy is an item I would be very uncomfortable having most of my money in if I was viewing it as an investment. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people in Pokemon right now, because they're young, particularly people who've been in it a while, the vast majority of their net worth is in Pokemon. And they don't know exactly what to do about that. And I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm just going to say what I'm comfortable with. You know, you're going to talk about what you're comfortable with, that sort of thing. Scotty G says, I think having a big amount of money in Pokemon isn't that crazy considering we are experiencing insane inflation and dollars in your bank are tanking currently. Yeah, so we don't know what the effects of this are going to be. That definitely could be a major effect of all this unemployment, extra unemployment money going out, the stimulus checks, potential bigger stimulus checks, that sort of thing. Logic would stand that you are right. I'm not exactly sure what the best thing to do to hedge against that is. It's a tricky time. It's a tricky time. Would not be putting all my money in Pokemon, and certainly would not be putting all my money in Pokemon that isn't very liquid, and certainly would not be putting a lot of money into Pokemon where there's millions of an item. Okay. GeorgeBot says, hi, Jake. You often highlight how irrational this market is. Do you think the market will tend to act more rationally over time? I think it will act less rationally, and I buy accordingly. You think it's going to act less rationally? No. So so when markets tend to get more established, they will behave more rationally, odds are, because there's going to be more people who are experienced. There's going to be people who get burned on the supply side, and then they're going to realize that supply actually does matter. And once they do that, they're going to care more about that. Now, that's one type of irrationality that's going on in the market. The more blatant type of irrationality that's going on in the market is that people are buying things for way over the price than they even need to if they waited a little bit or did a little bit of research. Okay, and to me, that also will get better because that's the type of stuff that happens in a mania. In FOMO, in a fear of missing out. People are so worried that they're not going to be able to get the product or that they feel like they can make so much money off of it immediately in a flip or something like that they're willing to pay more than they would in a slower time. And so is that irrationality? Yeah, or is that just maybe poor buying decisions? I'm not sure, but for me it's pretty irrational that and I was just talking to Rafi, at BJ's, at our BJ's we can still buy evolutions packs at like $3 a piece, and if the $1,000 mark and whereas people are spending $1,000 for a booster box and they're opening on these live streams I hear in Europe and are getting $1,500 worth, if I do quick math here, 1,500 divided by 36, people are paying almost $42 per pack, and you can get those packs for $3. So that to me is crazy. Now maybe those people in Europe can't go to the BJ's and get it, so they may not be able to get it. But I think if they knew that was happening, I'm not sure they'd be willing to spend $42 on things that across the world people could get for a couple bucks. Is pretty crazy. So that's the type of stuff that to me is that irrational exuberance type stuff. I'm far too conservative of a person to ever spend that much money on something when I could get it for that much cheaper. And I guess frugal is the way to put it. All right, gonna do about 11 more minutes. We're gonna end at 6 p.m., which is in 11 minutes. Golix My Place says, Jake, what are your thoughts on scalpers? I go back and forth on it, depending on my mood, depending on the day. Scalpers is a pretty blanket term. What is a scalper? Is a scalper any reseller, anyone buying products and then trying to flip it? We've had, that's the vast majority. A lot of people that you guys love and look up to are scalpers in that sense. That's what their business is. That's what they're doing. I think that it's all about the extremeness of what they're doing, how many they're buying, how aggressively are they emptying stores, are they, that type of stuff I think is probably okay, actually. Are they doing even grosser stuff like opening and stealing products? Are they paying managers off at places? Are managers doing it? Are the managers the scalpers because they at Walmart because they know when the product comes in and they can tell someone or text someone and get an advantage. All that stuff, not okay at all to me. Gross. That's to me a huge what would the word be? I don't know if that's illegal technically, but those people should be fired from their jobs, I think, and are taking advantage of their positions in a way to get an advantage over other people when their job is actually to serve the customers, and that's what they're being paid for. So I think that stuff would be very problematic. Marzo says, I used to pay store managers for Yeezy's backdoor. Yeah, laugh out loud. Yeah, like that type of stuff. I think those people are unethical. They may come back and argue, well, I don't get paid enough. I have a terrible job and I'm going to make money where I can. And I actually totally get that. I'm not a black and white type person. I understand that human beings are complex and that these things are complex conversations and that morality is complex. It's part of why it depends on my mood, how frustrated I am with that. I think that that's also a problem with the Pokemon Company and the way that these things are distributed, and the problems lie higher up often in the power structure that cause these sort of situations where then really often more lower socioeconomic people are doing unscrupulous things to try and get ahead. And then we end up like blaming them and being angry at them where the real money is being made at the top type of thing. So that's unfair, I think. I think you kind of have to spread the blame around if you're going to blame or be upset with anyone. The other thing I'm going to say, it's an open market, it's supply and demand. I don't get why people are so upset, because for me, as much as I love Pokemon, I'm absolutely fine being scalped out of the modern sets. It's okay. I kind of think a lot of the people who are really angry at the scalpers are just upset that they're not able to scalp and not able to make money, and are just kind of not jealous, but are frustrated that they're not able to make the profit that they used to make. And that I also get, and I think is frustrating and difficult, particularly if you've been in the game for a long time and now these new people are coming in and pushing you off. I think that's frustrating too. So I get all of that. So it's kind of, we're all humans here, and we're all going to, we all have our own comfort level with sort of taking advantage of situations and how much money you're willing to make based on your own ethical principles. I guess those are some of my thoughts on it. Let's see what other people are thinking. Got a lot of smart people in the chat who have interesting viewpoints, I'm sure, also. Radizer says scalpers are just a byproduct of the current lacuna in global supply chains. If Pokemon was able to print more to stabilize prices, would obviously make more profit. They would, yeah. Yep, yeah. It's an interesting debate right now, Radizer, about is Pokemon just not able to print enough because the demand is so high and they don't, it's either some sort of supply chain issue or that the printers, because sports cards are also so hot right now and the printers are being used for both sports cards and Pokemon cards and other cards, there just isn't enough space to print out enough product. Or is Pokemon doing this like somewhat intentionally to cause demand? You know, why are they releasing certain sets? Why are they doing reprints of certain sets and not others? What, you know, what's the theories behind it? There's a lot of speculation you can do, but nobody really knows. Kenneth Lee, scalpers are a result of demand that Pokemon can't supply, so I don't blame scalpers as much. Yeah, that's definitely some of what I was saying, Kenneth. And I guess for me, it's like, just don't buy the modern sets. Like, does anyone need any set? Like, I guess that's kind of what I don't get, and maybe I'm not as much of a Pokemon fanatic as some people. And I get, like, if Pokemon's like your one and only hobby, and it's like the most important thing to you, and it stinks so much. Like, you've been collecting these sets forever, or maybe you've collected every set and you built every binder, and you just you really have that urge to complete everything, and now you have to spend so much more money. Very, you know, sympathetic to that. I guess for the majority of people, I don't think that's probably the case, and I kind of feel like they're angry because they want to make the money, as I was saying before, and are upset that they're not making the money that other people are making. For me, it comes down to, like, just don't buy it. You know, if people stop buying at these higher prices, the prices will come down. It's pretty simple. But I think people keep buying not because they love Pokemon, I think in a lot of cases, but because they're all trying to make money. Everyone's greedy. You know, I think so much of this is greed based. And I don't mean greed in a critical way. I mean, you know, we could replace greed with just wanting to make money. You know, Carnal Gaming says, "Man, I'm not used to this much sensibility." Well, why? Thank you, Mason. We always try to be very sensible here on this channel. Proverb says, "Hey Jake, I would like to talk to you kinda about this topic a bit more privately. I missed the last like 30 to 40 minutes, but seemed to pop up in a good time. Would it be all right to reach out to you with a DM? Yeah, reach out to me on that Instagram, and I'll try to get back to you. Okay." Empire of Nostalgia says, "CGC or PSA in the next 2 years, Jake?" We talked a little bit about CGC and PSA earlier. I guess to add on that, if you want to go back and look towards the beginning, I don't have strong feelings. The main thing that I would say is that people are grading with CGC because of the wait times. You know, CGC, right, is closer to BGS, I would say, in terms of difficulty to grading, in terms of the 9.5s to 10s. I'm not going to go back on everything I said before because I said quite a bit. So I apologize. Jimmy Jam Meyer, WotC holds products, so I wouldn't be surprised. Giraffe Fetica says PSA all the way for them. Josh Harris says Champion's Path is a clear sign they are aware and being very tactical with decisions. Matt says, if anything is burning me out with Pokemon, it is modern. Rainy Day Collectibles says their demand planning was probably done 2 years in advance with limited flex spots, so I'm sure it's temporary supply issues. Yeah, interesting. So Rainy Day might, and Rainy Day is someone who I know has connections in to Wizards of the Coast. So you would probably be pretty aware of how those, I was talking a little bit with Squeaks about that, about how sort of these companies, you know, do they have contracts? Is all of it planned out with these companies in advance? How long in advance? How flexible are they in terms of changing it? I know that they have some flexibility, is my understanding. So it's not just like that, but that the flexibility might be limited. It's all very like, I don't know. So any insight you want to share with us or are able to share with us, I'm always happy to learn about that. You know, it's interesting that, you know, that's the stuff that's so important in terms of predicting prices, but that's not the stuff that people are talking about because we don't know. And so just be very careful. If people don't have that level of depth of analysis or knowledge on what's going on, be very careful with like following their advice on to buy something. Okay. Cardinal Gaming says Pokemon is an Illuminati-ran business and they are purposely manipulating product flow and supply. Definitely. Yeah. All right. Any last second questions here, guys? We're sort of at 5:59 here. Got about a minute left, and then I'm gonna close down the stream. Anyone got any last minute questions, last second questions they want answered today? Okay, doesn't look like it. Kenneth Lee throws in a last second question here, which I can touch on. Predictions on delivery Charizard. No, I don't really have predictions. I don't really want to make predictions on it. I cringe a little bit every time people say like what the price of that should be, and then it becomes that because someone said, I don't like that stuff. I would say that depending on how many there are, we'll probably do well because it's the same thing as a special delivery Pikachu, and it has Charizard and Pikachu on it, right? So I don't think there's too much more to say on it than that. I don't think anyone has a sense of how many there are going to be. Now, one thing to look out for, right, is if there are going to be a lot more of them, because maybe Pokemon is going to, because the delivery Pikachu is so popular, maybe they decide to print this one a huge amount to try and correct that. Maybe they reprint the special delivery Pikachu and have that come out more to try and correct some of that, because there's so much demand. So that's the type of stuff that I'd be very careful with all that stuff. Not something I would be investing in. I think if you like it and want it, go for it. May Estona TV said, "Is Pokemania back?" I think that's probably a good question to end on. And we are going to end there. And I'm going to... So is Pokemania back? So... when cards dipped in price, my response to that was sort of like, let's see what happens. Let's be patient. It made sense on the cards that retraced a lot. There's a reason why basically the only cards I sold were like unlimited base cards right after those box breaks, and I was, and I've thinned out a little bit here and there of things that I had just so many copies of during that time. But there's a reason I held on to most things, and that's because I believe that people love Pokemon and highly value Pokemon, and I believe in these cards retaining value over a long period of time. Not so interested in the huge hype, in the huge ups, the huge downs. I was worried about unlimited base because I just know how much is in the world. And that's why I sold that. And I just always feel like that is going to be available, and like I could buy it back. And I did buy back one card, just at like 80% lower than I sold it for, just because I wanted that card. I think that we're going to have ups and downs. I'm going to end with this idea that I think is important, which is that this is not stable, calm, consistent growth on anything. This is erratic, hype-driven, speculative-driven movement that we're seeing prices on a lot of these cards and boxes. So be careful out there with that. It can, just as it can go up a lot, it can go down a lot. In terms of timing it, I am not, other than those unlimited cards that I timed because I just couldn't hold them because I just know the population on them. I think that selling into this is risky because you might sell at the wrong time and then not be able to afford your cards back. It's the same advice I would give people, again, not a financial advisor here, with stocks. it's like, yes, things might be inflated, but it could go up even more. And then, if you buying and sell a lot in the stock market, you might miss like the 5 biggest, most important up days of trading. And if you miss like 2 of those days or 3 of those days, you may not make anything. You may lose money. You may lose your 8 to 12% over time. And so I think that that's the danger of buying and selling in erratic, crazy markets, is that they're so difficult to time unless you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of insight and you're following it really carefully. And so I want to leave you guys with that just as I would be careful with buying because of that risk and those ups and downs, there's also that difficulty in selling and knowing when the best time to sell is. Overall, we'll just have to kind of call balls and strikes as we see it on this channel over time and not predict things that we can't predict. Basically, as Pokemania back, I mean, it's gonna be up and down. It just shows you how speculative everything is, that people's interest and fear can be so affected by one influencer saying, I'm going to leave the hobby for a little bit, Logan Paul, and then Logan Paul saying, I'm going to come back, and then Katy Perry coming, it's so, that is not what creates a hobby and sustains a hobby over time. Okay. That's what affects short-term movements. And so if you're a day trader or a flipper, that's the stuff that you have to be constantly aware of. But if you're sort of holding these things and collecting these things in the long term, kind of having that more patient, calm, even-keeled approach, trying not to panic when things go down, trying not to get overly irrational, exuberant, or think you're a genius when things go up, that's the general advice I would give. Okay? So thank you so much, everyone, for staying this whole way. Thank you for all the thank yous in the chat and that people enjoyed the talk. So great to see you guys every week. It's really nice that we have like a lot of the same group of people every week coming and hanging out. Hope you guys got some good value today. Got some good entertainment, because I think a lot of this is entertainment, right? It's not, it's just fun hanging out, talking about stuff we love. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you guys all next Sunday. We'll of course do this again.